Sometimes as we get older, we sometimes develop conditions that change our lives. In this episode, we're going to find out that getting gout doesn't mean your life is over. This week, out, damn gout. So this episode is called Out, Damn Gout. And the recipes are designed to give you a meal that is delicious and easy to prepare and something that's kind of fun, but it's not going to cause any flare-ups with a condition known as gout. I'm not a doctor, and I will be honest, if I was to try and describe the disease to you or how it's caused, I would probably end up wasting a great deal of time. But I have two friends of mine that are afflicted by gout, and they asked me if there was something that I could do to show them how to eat well, but not flare up their condition. So I did a little bit of research on the internet, and I found some recipes that actually from my family that are tasty and fresh and will not trigger or cause a flare up of gout. So for this episode, we're going to teach three different courses. We're going to teach you a lentil soup, which can be turned into macaroni and lentils. We're going to teach you how to make a fresh apple cider vinaigrette. And then we're also going to teach you how to make a dessert, a tart cherry crumble, also known as a Betty in this case, which should be a wonderful dessert for you to enjoy. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to just go over what the recipe entails for the lentil soup or lentil stew. Lentil stew is a hearty meal that is comprised mostly of the legume lentils with a little bit of celery, a little bit of carrots, a little bit of onion, a little bit of parsley, salt and pepper, and then a little bit of tomato just to give it a little bit of depth, a little bit of sweetness, and a little bit more richness. So what we did was we took the lentils and we opened them up to soak them. If you don't have a great deal of time, you don't have to soak them that long, but it is important to soak them for a little bit to allow them to swell. What I did was I took the lentils. When you're making dinner for about maybe 2-3 people, or if you're doing it for one, use about a half a cup of lentils for each person. I went and actually started soaking an entire bag, and then I realized that a lot of the times the feedback that I'm getting from the audience is, hey, we love the recipes, but sometimes you cook for an army, and that's my talent. But I'm going to try and scale it back so that it's more doable for people that are doing 1, 2, or 3 people. So what I did was I took the lentils and I put them with water covering them about, I would say, 3 or 4 inches above the lentils, because what they're going to do is they're going to swell to about double their size once they soak up. Now the water is brownish. It's the residue from the beans, it's bean juice, it's impurities. You don't want to use that. What you want to do is once you've soaked them, you're going to dump it out, you're going to strain them, and then you're going to add fresh water to start the recipe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer enough lentils from this into the pot to make dinner for 2 to 3 people. Now that we've rinsed them with fresh water and they're clean, what we're going to do is we're just going to take enough lentils to make the dinner for 3. So I would say about 2 ladles worth. And that's about 1 inch over the top with enough space to put the water and the other ingredients in. So we're then going to add fresh water over the top. To about an equal portion over the top. So 1 inch of water over the inch of beans. And we're going to put it on the action station and start it heating up. Always start with cold water. So what we're going to do now is we're gonna add the ingredients. So we've got carrots, we've got celery, we've got a little bit of onion. I would say this is a quarter of an onion, a sweet onion. And we've got parsley. We're not gonna use all the parsley, we're gonna use just enough to make this dish. So what we have is the carrot. I would cut it into pieces that when they're boiled will soften quickly. So you're looking at about 1/3 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. When they get bigger by diameter, it's perfectly okay to cut the carrot like so and just do half moons. By keeping the size of the carrots relatively consistent, they will cook evenly throughout the course. And I think 1 carrot is gonna be plenty. Next, we're gonna do the celery. About the same size as the carrots and about the same volume as the carrots. When the celery gets a little bit bigger, it's perfectly okay to once again cut it in half and just cut the pieces so they stay about the same size. And literally into the pot. Now the onion. I'm gonna use the entire 1/4 of an onion. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna just mince it. Now safety is paramount, so just make sure that you're being very careful, because as you get closer to the edge, it's gonna wanna move on you. Now that it's all chopped, we can mince it a little bit finer. Now this is a sweet onion, but you're totally fine using a yellow onion if you wish, or if you would prefer, you could even use a scallion or a shallot. Now if you like, you can put an even amount of celery, carrots, and onions all together in this. I tend to put a little bit more onion just because I like the flavor of it. So now, the most important thing for this dish, for the health and flavor, is fresh parsley. Fresh parsley tends to be very nutritionally dense and tends to help detoxify, help with digestion. There's a bunch of things that parsley can do, but you don't need a great deal of it, just enough. So I'm gonna put in about, I would say, the equivalent of 1/4 of a cup of parsley. I'm just pulling off the leaves. We're not gonna use the stems. So about 1/4 of a cup. When it's not chopped, it looks bigger than 1/4, but you'll see in just a moment when I mince it that it shrinks down tremendously. So all we're gonna do is rough chop and mince it down. One of my friends always goes looking for parsley on his plates at restaurants, and he makes sure that he always eats it. He is absolutely convinced that it is the most nutritious thing on the plate that he's eating. And he also believes that it is a cure for bad breath. And there we go. So now that it's minced, we're just gonna add it to the pot. Now, fun fact, parsley is one of the herbs that can be used on almost everything, but it's also one of the ones that will stain your cutting boards the quickest. So my suggestion is, whenever you're done, quickly wash your cutting board so that the green doesn't stick. So we're just gonna give it a stir to make sure that everything is mixing well. Now, in addition to the fact that this is an excellent dish for those that are suffering from gout, it's also a vegan dish. So that if you're a vegetarian or vegan, this is a wonderful hearty meal for a cold winter night, or for a hearty meal when you find you need some iron and a little bit of protein. So what we're gonna do now is, while this is coming up to temperature, before it starts to boil, we're gonna add a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper to it. And then we're gonna add a little bit of red sauce once it comes to a boil and it's been boiling for about 3 or 4 minutes. So we're gonna add about a pinch to 2 pinches of salt. And we're gonna add about a pinch of pepper. And it's slowly starting to come to a boil. So in just a few moments, we're gonna add the, I would say about maybe 3 or 4 tablespoons of over-the-counter red sauce. In this case, we're using ragu extra chunky with mushrooms because it really does a beautiful job pairing with this dish and gives it a little bit more of an earthy flavor. So it's just starting to bubble now. So we're going to go ahead and add the red sauce. We're literally only gonna take about 4 tablespoons of the sauce. You know what? 5 for good measure. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna turn the water to a kind of a brownish red, which is exactly what you want. Now, the majority of the work is done. We just have to let it continue to stew and reduce. So you can leave it for the next 45 minutes or so, just slowly simmering with the red sauce in. So we've transferred it into another dish because we're gonna make it into phase 2, which is the macaroni and lentils. But if you are vegetarian or vegan and you are trying to be gluten-free at the same time, at this point in time, this is a perfect lentil stew. And you're able to serve it and eat it just like this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna demonstrate it just a little bit. What you see is that it's nice and hearty and rich, and it's full. There's not a lot of liquid to it. It's mostly the carrots and the celery and the lentils, and then just a little enough broth to hold it together. And that is a phenomenal hearty meal in and of itself. But to make it into the macaroni and lentils, what we're gonna do is we're going to take it and we're gonna add just enough water to give the pasta the volume that it needs to fully cook. So you're looking at dinner for 3. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a look at the lentils the way they are, and I'm gonna add approximately, I wanna say 3 cups of water. And what this does is it reconstitutes it looser, and now it looks more like a brothy soup. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring it to temperature, we're gonna bring it to boil, and we're gonna take 1/8 of a pound of pasta per person. So you're looking at, for 3 people, a little less than half a pound. And in this case, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use linguine. And when it comes to a boil, we're gonna break the 3/8 of a pound of linguine into it, and we're gonna let it cook until the pasta absorbs all of the moisture and becomes a hearty, rich pasta and bean dish. So it's come to a rolling boil, and now all we're gonna do is we're gonna put the pasta in. We're gonna break it into pieces about 1/5 of the length of the pasta. I know that that sounds rather vague, and I apologize, but what you want is you wanna be able to pick them up with a spoon. Not necessarily a fork. You won't be able to turn them because they'll be smaller pieces, but they'll be able to be eaten easily by an adult or by a child. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now at this point, all we have to do is keep an eye on it, and we're gonna stir it every few minutes until the pasta is completely cooked. So this looks like it's gonna be really complicated, but I swear it's not. And it's open to interpretation. I'm gonna give you what I do for my apple cider vinaigrette, but you can literally change things, try other seasonings, play with it and make it your own. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start by taking 1/4 of a cup of olive oil, extra virgin. In this case, I'm using my favorite, which is the blood orange olive oil from the Temecula Olive Oil Company, and about 1/4 of a cup of Bragg's apple cider vinegar. We're putting, like I said, 1/4 of a cup of each, so we're even. Now the olive oil and the cider vinegar are not gonna blend particularly well. It's just water and oil don't mix particularly well. So what we need is something that's gonna bind it. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a little bit of honey. I would say about maybe 2 to 3 tablespoons worth. And we're gonna take a nice hearty teaspoon of Grey Poupon mustard. These two together should create enough of a bind that you're totally fine. They'll mix together relatively evenly. Okay, we're also going to add to the mixture a little bit of garlic powder and a little bit of onion powder. Just about 1/2 teaspoon of each. And we're gonna put a little bit of salt, just a light sprinkle. And a light sprinkle. And then we're gonna whisk it. Now, if you are with a kitchen that has all the toys and all the tools, it's very, very simple to stick this into a mixer or into something that's designed to make this easier for you. But if all you have is a whisk, you can still get the job done. And I'll be honest, I like kind of to do things by hand because it makes me kind of feel like I'm more involved. And after just about 1.5 minutes of mixing it, it should take on a kind of a thick, almost viscous texture. And there you have it, apple cider vinegar. Now, it's at this point that you would have it chilled. If you would like, it's very, very easy to put in a little bit of chopped, minced, very, very fine shallots, a little bit of onion or a little bit of scallion, but it doesn't need it. So it's perfect. You can put it in the refrigerator and you can save it for up to about 5 or 6 days. In this case, this is enough salad dressing, I would think, to dress an entire head of lettuce. So this is kind of bizarre and it's kind of cheating, but I think you're gonna like it. We're gonna make a Tart Cherry Betty is I think what it's called. I just wanted to do a crumble, but I was corrected by my friend Marina, who described to me that what I was talking about was a Betty. What a Betty is a fruit compote with a little bit of crumbled crust or goodness over the top that's then baked so that the two become one. What I did was I went and got some dried tart cherries from Sprouts. And I got a little bit of concentrated cherry juice and I added a little bit of water because it's really, really thick and concentrated if you use it plain. So I've been soaking the cherries in this cherry juice for about, I would say, 1.5 hours to 2 hours. And they've started to rehydrate and become soft. They're looking actually really good. But upon the advice of my friend Marina, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add it to the pan and I'm gonna add a little bit of honey to sweeten it up and to thicken it up just a little bit. Okay, so once you've added it to the pan, you're just gonna drizzle it with a little bit of honey, which is gonna sweeten up and thicken up the mixture. I used about 3 tablespoons of honey, but you'll have to experiment and you'll have to find what works best for you. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a little spatula and we're gonna just let this thicken up just a little bit. Then what we're gonna do is we're going to coat this pan with a little bit of Pam or with shortening if you prefer. And then we're gonna put the mixture in, and then we're going to put a little bit of the crumble. And this is, I cheated again on this one. This is granola. It's a French vanilla almond granola, which I tested last night with a little bit of milk. And I have to be honest, the fact that I didn't eat the entire thing is a testament to the willpower that I have trying to show you good recipes, because I really did want to eat it all. It's coming to a little bit of a rolling boil, so I grabbed the spatula and I'm just stirring it a little bit to allow it to thicken up. We just want it to reduce to the point where it's almost to the point of being like a cherry filling for a pie. I assume that it's probably going to take about 4 or 5 minutes for it to reduce down and become thicker. You're going to want to fight the urge to add a little bit more honey because you don't want it overly sweet. Pretty excited about this. We've cooked it down to the point where it's getting thicker and you can actually see the cherries like reconstituting. So we're going to hurry up and prep the baking dish. We're going to take it, we're going to spray it with Pam, and we're going to take the cherries, which are now thicker and heartier, and we're going to put it into the baking dish. Okay, now that we've done that, I'm going to take the granola, I'm going to take these big pieces out because that's going to be a little problematic, and we're left with a finer dust. What we're going to do is we're going to sprinkle it over the top, not pack it down. We just want it to coat just a little bit. And what that will do is it'll give for lack of a better term, a nice coating over the top. Now there's enough moisture in it that it's going to bubble up into it, which is perfect because otherwise the granola will stay dry. What you could do, if you wanted to, was mix a little bit of flour and a little bit of milk and a little bit of butter together to create kind of a binding agent to mix in with the granola if you wanted like almost like a pastry crust. But in this case, we just want that to be the top and to kind of blend with everything. So we're now going to take this and we're going to put it into the oven and we're going to bake it at 350 for about 25 minutes. So the pasta is almost done, the stew is already done, and the crumble is in the oven. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a quick tossed salad to go along with this beautiful apple cider vinaigrette that we've just made. So since we're making dinner for 3, what you're looking at is about 1 leaf of lettuce per person. I'm gonna do 1 tomato, a little bit of celery, and about half of a carrot. We're gonna just use the grater to slice it up so that there's a little color in there and a little bit of flavor. So we're gonna start with the greens. Take 3 individual leaves of romaine lettuce and slice them. This literally creates little bite-sized pieces of lettuce that are just perfect for a salad. And we're going to take the celery and we're going to slice it on the thinner and smaller side. You want the little bit of crunch, but you don't necessarily want a big honking piece of celery that's going to take over their bite. We're gonna take the tomato and just cut off the top. What I like for smaller salads like this is pieces that you can see and enjoy, but they're also not gonna be overwhelming. So half of a Roma tomato looks perfect. And then we're going to use the wide, I don't even know what to call it. It's like what you would use for grating mozzarella cheese that's balled up. So we're just gonna shave. Just make sure that your fingers don't come into contact with the grater. Keep a nice distance to be safe. And half of a carrot should be more than enough for this salad. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna toss it with some forks or some tongs to get all the ingredients together before we put the dressing in. Because if we put the dressing in first, it's gonna cause all the different ingredients to clump up and they're not gonna get the dispersion that you want throughout your salad. So now all the ingredients are perfectly together in the right amount. And we're just trying to toss it so that it looks appetizing and ready to be served. Now that the ingredients are evenly spread, we're gonna drizzle a little bit of the apple cider vinaigrette. It doesn't take that much dressing to coat a salad. So I'm putting about maybe 3 tablespoons. Just so that it's coated and flavorful throughout. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your meal. We hope you enjoyed it. It comes out to about $1.75 to $2.50 per portion based on what we've built here. It's a very inexpensive meal. It's hearty for a cold winter, and it's really an interesting option if you're looking to cut meat out of your diet. But really what this is for my friend Ryan and for Chef Dwayne at Eddie V's in La Jolla. Gentlemen, this episode was made for you. Have a wonderful meal, and I look forward to seeing you again on Fresh Food Therapy. But this is really tasty. Now you have to sit and watch me chew for a minute.